Husband means one who takes charge of a girl for life, and wife means one who has resolved to serve her husband throughout her life. That is the meaning of husband and wife. When the wife is in danger, the husband's duty is to give her protection at any cost. So, protection is a key word. And then you have the example, Ramchandra, which Prabhupada will give. That was from a lecture, and this next one is from the Bhagavatam. It's from the 5th canto, 19th chapter, text number 5. Another aspect of the Lord's instruction is that one who accepts a wife must be a faithful husband and give her full protection. Human society is divided into two classes of men: those who strictly follow the religious principles, and those who are devotees. That's interesting. Human society is divided into two classes of men: those who follow the religious principles and those who are devotees. I guess that was formerly, people fell into those two categories. By his personal example, Lord Ramchandra wanted to instruct both of them how to fully adopt the discipline of the religious system and how to be a beloved and dutiful husband. Otherwise, he had no reason to undergo apparent tribulations. This is regarding Lord Ramchandra. One who strictly follows religious principles must not neglect to provide all facilities for the complete protection of his wife. There may be some suffering because of this, but one must nevertheless endure it. Endure it. That is the duty of a faithful husband. By his personal example, Lord Ramchandra demonstrated this duty. Interesting. Lord Ramchandra had to undergo a lot of trouble in getting back Sita. So that's what Prabhupada's referring to. And then he's making this interesting point. There may be some suffering because of this. What's the this? That's the protection. One must not neglect to provide all possible facilities for the complete protection of his wife. So Prabhupada's giving a broader definition of protection. It means providing what a woman needs. It's the duty of the husband. So protection is not just you keep away all the, protection sounds like being a bodyguard. Well, generally a husband doesn't have to be a bodyguard. So protection means providing everything that the wife needs. In this case, of course, she had been kidnapped. So he had to undergo all kinds of trouble, and then Prabhupada makes this statement, which is quite interesting, that there may be some suffering. In order to protect the wife, he may have to undergo some personal difficulty or suffering, which a lot of men don't want to undergo. So it's nice that Prabhupada says this. So, gentlemen, if you ever undergo any suffering, to maintain the family, which inevitably we do in trying to maintain ourselves in this world, it's not always easy. So then you can think of Lord Ramchandra, that he did that also. And Prabhupada ends this purport by saying, he demonstrated what is duty. So he underwent suffering. It's an example for us. We may have to undergo some difficulty sometimes, but it's just part of your duty. Because what happens often, and there are many letters that were written to Prabhupada to demonstrate this problem, that men would suffer within household life, and then they'd want to take sannyas. And Prabhupada would say, both in the letters and in his purports to his books, that taking sannyas is not meant to be the result of suffering or undergoing difficulty in household life. It's meant to be the result of spiritual advancement. So, these men were not necessarily spiritually advanced, but they were definitely frustrated or undergoing difficulties that they hadn't anticipated would be part of household life. And their conclusion was, better to just take sannyas and leave the whole thing. So then Prabhupada would say, as I think we read in that letter, can you remember that letter? That devotee wanted to leave his wife, and Prabhupada said, this is your duty, it's part of household life. You can't just leave. So he's getting a lot of letters like that. And when the men would run into difficulty, they were hoping that married life would be like full of heavenly bliss. And when it wasn't full of heavenly bliss, they would write Prabhupada and say, "Can I take sannyas? This is a tough job, and I have got my," what do we say in America? Got my head over my head. So that was their response. Take sannyas, get out of it. And occasionally there were men who were qualified for sannyas. Prabhupada could see that they could do tremendous work as a sannyasi, and he allowed them to do that if their wives gave permission. But that was the exception. And generally he just said, "You're married, so stick it out." And it's just part of the ashram, that there may be difficulty. And then Prabhupada said to me, he said, "First you become ideal grihastha, then you take sannyas. It's not going well, so that's the cue to take sannyas." And Prabhupada talks about this in the Bhagavatam. He said, you have the mature sannyasi who realizes his position and is qualified to take sannyas, and also he does it at the right time when the family's grown up and the wife has children. And then the other kind of sannyasi is just frustrated. He's frustrated with household life, so his renunciation, his desire to renounce, is a byproduct of his frustration. It's not a byproduct of his advancement. So it's very common. So naturally, everyone gets married to be happy and looks forward to the joy of married life, but then there's so many difficulties in it, and then it's like for some men it was just a shock. They didn't expect it was going to be like that. Of course, probably they also were not very capable, and they were causing their wives anxiety, who therefore caused them anxiety. As we spoke about last week, if you don't know how to be a good husband, your wife's going to have a difficult time being a good wife, or vice versa. So, did Prabhupada renounce out of frustration? Well, Prabhupada's position was his frustration was that he wanted his wife to help him preach. So if she was helping him preach, he wouldn't have taken sannyas. So it's a good thing that she wasn't, because had he not taken sannyas, I don't think he would have been able to do what he had done. So that was his frustration, and he had a mission, and he was at the age when he knew, if I don't execute the mission now, then it's not going to happen. So I think his frustration was different. It was a frustration in not being able to execute the order of his guru. It wasn't really a frustration in family life or relinquishing duty. It was a higher duty, and he was capable of the higher duty. So it was a different kind of frustration. It was the frustration that he wasn't able to execute the order of his spiritual master. And, in one lecture, Prabhupada, he mentioned kind of the history of how he came to America and how he got the order when he was younger. And he said, I should have executed the order as soon as I got it, but I was a married man, just had a newly born child, couldn't do it. And then he said, better late than never. So when he was, I believe he renounced at the age of 59. So, he knew he had to execute the order. And he knew that his wife, he confronted her about it, and she was not going to help him. And so he was at a crossroads. He had to do something. It was either stay with her, be dutiful, and not be dutiful to his spiritual master, or give up everything so he could fully execute the order. So he made that decision, he made that choice. But he made it at the end of life, not in the beginning. So he took sannyas at the time, or at the stage one takes sannyas. So then, if he did it, even if he did it at 25 and was successful in spreading Krishna consciousness, nobody would fault him. So, if you can save the world and it requires leaving your wife to save the world, then no one will really fault you, except your wife maybe. But, his kids were not wild about the fact that he left them, but it had to be done. And so, but the story, Bhaktisiddhanta came to him twice in a dream and said, take sannyas. So that was the real impetus. So then we can say clearly it was not a frustration, although he was frustrated with his family situation, but ultimately it was the order of his spiritual master. But frustration in the sense that Prabhupada refers to it in his books, and we're talking about here, is just that you're not happy, it's difficult, it's basically you're running into difficulties that you hadn't anticipated, because there are difficulties that you run into as a married man that you don't have as a single man, and then you kind of feel your freedom is being taken away from you. And maybe you look at the men who aren't married and you think, oh my God, what did I do? And then you start lamenting, maybe I made a mistake, and this, that, and the next thing. I'm working so hard, and life has so many demands, and kids are sick, and this, that. So he starts looking at it like that, and it just kind of, he didn't understand the reality of it, and maybe he doesn't have a very dutiful nature, and so he's only looking at the negative side of it, and then in that frustration, he wants to become a sannyasi. So that's not the way you take sannyas. You do your duties, and then when you're 50, 60, then you start thinking about it once the kids are grown up. Or even you're 50, 60, you may not think about it. It may not be necessary. You may already be living the life of a sannyasi. Many householders are living the lives of sannyasis. Prabhupada said to one grihastha who wanted to take sannyas, he said, you're already more than sannyas. You've given your life to Krishna. So he said more than sannyas because in the sense that you have a wife and child, but you're not enjoying it. Sannyasi has nothing to enjoy. But potentially a grihastha, a man or a woman, has more to enjoy, potentially. Not that they would, or should, not that they should, they may, but they shouldn't. And so for a man who is dedicated completely to Krishna consciousness, even though married, Prabhupada would say, you're more than sannyasi, because you've given everything. You already are sannyas or more. Because now you're so renounced that you have the wife and children, but you're not enjoying it, so you're sannyas also, or more. So, let's continue reading. This is from same purport, 519.5. Lord Ramachandra could have produced hundreds and thousands of Sitas from his pleasure energy. But just to show the duty of a faithful husband, he not only rescued Sita from the hands of Ravana, but also killed Ravana and all the members of his family. So, in other words, Prabhupada is saying, Lord Ramachandra didn't say, this is like too much. She's kidnapped, and we'd have to go there, and we'd have to fight Ravana, who's super, super powerful, and we have to collect an army. Well, it is too much trouble. We're just going to let Sita stay there. We're going to call it a day, and we're going to take sannyas. So, obviously he didn't say that, so that's the example he set, that whatever you have to do it to protect your family. So he sets the example for all the men. This is a letter from Srila Prabhupada from the 15th of September, 1972. Marriage between the husband and wife means that the husband must forever be responsible for the wife's well-being and protection in all cases. That does not mean that now there is agreement between us. That does not mean that now there is agreement between us. Therefore, I am responsible. But as soon as there is some disagreement, then I immediately flee from the scene and become so-called renounced. Perfect example of what we're talking about. When Prabhupada means agreement, he means everything's going well. And as soon as everything's not going well, Then, as soon as there is some disagreement, then I immediately flee from the scene, become so-called renounced. Now, you might think, well, why is Prabhupada talking about this? Like, who would do such a thing? Who would think like that? There's so many men who are thinking like that. And of course, all the men that are listening now are not married. The reason, I think one of the reasons that men were thinking like this then, I don't think it's common now, because Prabhupada was making a lot of sannyasis. So, it's like, let's say Timothy's in this situation, right? He gets married, and then Antonio, which of course this wouldn't happen, but let's, for the sake of discussion, Timothy gets married, and 6 months later Antonio takes sannyas. Now everybody's really laughing. That'll never happen. Antonio takes sannyas? Are you kidding me? Someday he might. Don't, underestimate the power of an Antonio. So, and then let's say some unfortunate incident happens to Carolina, and Timothy he's having to take care of her. She's not well. She's got some illness, and he's spending all his money in the hospital, all his time, and she's really ill and just not in a good mood, and she's very demanding. And then he's looking at Antonio as this happy sannyasi who's just traveling and preaching, and on spite of it, on top of it, everywhere he goes he gets mahaprasadam and everyone bows down to him, which is exactly what it was like in those days. Everywhere you'd go, like, you say, well, what's the big thing about that? Yeah, people bow down to their gurus, but there was only one guru then. And people serve their gurus. But we were all godbrothers, so the sannyasis would get servants, they'd get all the maha, they'd travel everywhere, they wouldn't have to manage. They had the life, they were living on cloud 9, apparently. So the husband will think, oh my God, what did I do? Look at Antonio, he's so happy, he's just traveling and preaching, and I'm stuck in this situation. So that's when Prabhupada would get these letters. Now Antonio's planning to take sannyas. He's thinking, that sounds pretty good. Mahaprasadam, you get a servant, you get to travel, all expenses paid, people fly you tickets. Hey, maybe I could fake it for a few years, Do the maha, we used to call it the maha circuit. You go to the temple and all the maha comes to you. You do the maha circuit, Antonio. What a life, And plus, Antonio, the best part of taking sannyasis, all the women become more attracted to you. So if you want to get a good wife, take sannyas. You go to the temple and all the women will go, ooh, sannyasi's coming. He's so attractive. I would love to marry him. And you think, no, women don't think like that. They do. You could marry a sannyasi. Wow, what a catch. Right, Marina? I mean, you want a good husband, get a sannyasi. He's like, top of the line, Mercedes of husbands. Okay. But seriously, some men, they didn't know they were thinking like that, but in some way they were probably thinking like that when they wanted to take sannyas. Yeah. He's going to take sannyas now, but he's going to have to give himself sannyas. There was one devotee, it's a Prabhupada disciple. One day he showed up as a sannyasi. Everyone was like, what happened? He said, I gave myself sannyas. That's what Bhaktisiddhanta did. He gave himself sannyas. He didn't find anybody qualified to give him sannyas, so he gave it to himself. So this devotee did the same thing. And the GBC said, you can't do that. So they made him give back his danda. It's kind of funny. So Antonio, that might be the only person to give you sannyas is yourself. At this point, I mean, you could ask Guru Prasad Maharaj what he thinks, but probably would say no, I think. What do you think? We have fun with Antonio. He can take it. I hope. He's still with us here. He hasn't revolted against us. Yeah, okay. So, look for a sannyas guru. Maybe outside of ISKCON you could find one. It's funny, outside of ISKCON, many organizations, when men are older, they really encourage them to take sannyas. They push. And I had a friend who, he was so completely unqualified to take sannyas. He had so many problems, personal problems, and he went to that organization and they said, "You should take sannyas." It was like so funny. Okay, we're going to read. This is from the 9th canto, 10th chapter, text 54. Lord Ramchandra took a vow to accept only one wife and have no connection with any other women. Oh, we have to read a comment here. When Jeremy decided not to stay in the temple, one elder devotee told him he was blessed because now he gets real austerity serving Krishna outside the temple. Hare Krishna. Maybe we should write a purport. There are many fanatics in the Hare Krishna movement. What? It's true though. You may have to do real austerity, Jeremy. He's going to do the real austerity of preaching in Mexico. It's not really austere preaching in Mexico. Not outside ISKCON, just outside the temple. But outside ISKCON, yeah. You want to take sannyas, Antonio, outside ISKCON you have a greater chance. They'll give it to you. They're more into making sannyasis. Lord Ramachandra took a vow to accept only one wife and have no connection with any other woman. He was a saintly king, and everything in his character was good, untinged by qualities like anger. He taught good behavior for everyone, especially for householders, in terms of varnashram dharma. Thus he taught the general public by his personal activities. So the example here of Lord Ramachandra is that although Lord Ramachandra is Krishna, incarnation of Krishna, he's not taking the position that Krishna takes. With Krishna in his Leela, at least in Vrindavan, he doesn't set the example that we should follow. Actually, he sets the example we shouldn't follow in general. Like when Krishna steals butter, and you read the fact Krishna's stealing butter and yogurt, you're not supposed to think, well, he's God and he steals butter and yogurt, so let's go steal butter and yogurt, because I guess that's what you're supposed to do. Krishna also urinates on the floor of the gopis' homes, so then you think, hey, no, we won't even describe that, but don't do that. And the main thing you're not supposed to do is find other men's wives and take them out at night and wine and dine them. So Krishna is setting the example of Leela. I think you understand you're not supposed to do those things, right? You imagine some disciple does that and say, well, Krishna does it, doesn't? Isn't he setting the example for me? Hare Krishna, yes, he's setting the example, but not that example. And Lord Ramachandra, he sets the example because he's playing the part of a human. So he's setting the example of Dharma. So what he does, that we follow. Krishna does in Dwarka, he's more in that position of setting the example of the ideal householder in Dwarka. But in his Vrindavan Leela, or his Mathura Leela, it's different. So we follow the example of Lord Ram. And as Prabhupada's saying, one of the examples that Lord Ram, one of his examples, was that he has all these good qualities and his behavior is good. And he sets the example of the behavior for grihastas. So as Prabhupada says here, he's teaching by his personal activities. So you follow Lord Ram in that way. And Krishna, we follow his Leela by supporting it, not imitating it. So this we're going to read now is from the 9th canto, 10th chapter, verse 54. Everyone's wife belongs to Krishna, even yours. Yes, Marina, nothing is yours. When Mother Sita was kidnapped by Ravana and the Rakshasas, Lord Ramachandra, as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, could have married hundreds and thousands of Sitas, but to teach us how faithful he was to his wife, he fought with Ravana and finally killed him. So, as we said, Lord Ram didn't think, hey, one Sita is lost, but by my power I could create more, so let's not take the trouble for her. Just, write her off as a casualty and what can be done. And, it's just like, I'm not going to kill 1 million people to get her. That doesn't make any sense. No, he didn't think that way. So Prabhupada's saying, he's setting this example perfect example that he's faithful to his wife, so he does what's required to protect her and get her back. It's a good example. I don't know if you ever thought of Lord Ram as an example as a husband, but he's showing that this is the duty of the husband, and particularly what he's really showing is that sometimes it's difficult, and that's true, it is. And so by this example, the husband can, if he thinks of this example, he can better tolerate the difficulties that are involved in family life by thinking, well, Lord Ramchandra underwent them, and he didn't give up on Sita, so I also should not give up on my wife. Okay, so I'm going to continue reading. This next purport is from the 4th canto, 26th chapter, verse 6. Didn't he love her? Yes, he loved her so much. But it's interesting, Marina, if you see what we're reading, Prabhupada's talking about duty. Because love, you may love your wife, you may kind of love her, you may not love her that much that you want to suffer for her. I mean, I think that's the point Prabhupada's making, that, you look at these men and they're saying, I want to take sannyas, and you say, well, don't they love their wives? You say, I guess not. I guess they don't know what love is. Some men don't know how to love. It's just not part of their program, when their wife acts in certain ways that are not so pleasant. They don't know how to love, because the love was, the so-called love they had was very physical. And now they're over that physical attraction, and they may not have cultivated the, how should we say it? Let's be blunt. Men love women because women are beautiful. Internally and externally, they love the beauty of a woman. And if they are no longer in love with the beauty of a woman because of the behavior of the woman, it's not as beautiful as they thought it was before they were married, or maybe after years of marriage, the behavior is not so beautiful anymore, then maybe they don't love, quote unquote, the way they loved when they were younger. I mean, it's so common to say, I don't love you anymore. I don't have the same feelings I had for you when we were young. So Prabhupada's kind of bypassing that whole thing, and he's talking about duty, because that kind of, it's not real love. It's based on getting something or some attachment. Now, a good husband, he will love the woman on a deeper level, but a lot of men won't. It's such a physical thing, and it's so much based on the woman having a certain nature and personality, and that they thought she had, and later realizing there's an ugly side to her that they didn't realize. No fault on the women, but this is just how some men think. Of course, in some cases it's true. There are some women who are so difficult that it makes it hard for the men to love them, because they themselves don't know how to love and reciprocate. And then this man is caught in this situation where he's feeling like, I don't love you anymore. So that's common. And I think we can see from these purports what Prabhupada's not even dealing with that. He's dealing with, it's like, okay, love may come and go, and Prabhupada knows that, But you have a duty, and so you manifest love, quote unquote, through duty. That's how you really show your love. Because the other love, if it's the other love, hey, your wife's, you're attracted to your wife because she's so beautiful and so sweet and like that, but beauty's temporary. It only lasts for a few hours, and when she wakes up in the morning, what happened to her beauty? Sorry to be so blunt, but you know what I'm talking about. The man, men are so mesmerized by a woman's beauty that often that's a huge factor in marrying a woman. And you might think, well, we're devotees. We don't think like that. We shouldn't think like that. Yes, we do. We're human beings also. We're trying to be devotees. I mean, get real, Prabhus. When some Hollywood movie star joins the temple in Los Angeles, becomes devotee, all the brahmacharis who made vows for life, never to marry, all of a sudden, I want to marry her. She's so beautiful. I'm serious. These things happen, you know. I mean, I hate to be so blunt, but it's actually true. And then another woman joins, who's actually a nicer devotee, a better devotee, has so many good qualities, but externally not as beautiful as Miss Hollywood. Men are not looking at her. They're, you know, the brahmacharis are still remaining brahmacharis. They're not putting on white. But for Mrs. Hollywood, what to speak of Miss America joins, they're all putting on white, you know, lining up. Will you marry me? Will you marry me? It happens. So we can't, you know, and all the girls are going, yuck, I don't want to marry these guys. That's disgusting. Well, ladies, some guys are disgusting. It's just the way they're made. Now, you might say, but they're devotees. Yeah, but they're like 24 years old, they've been devotees 4 years, and, you know, they're still conditioned. So these things happen. It's just the way life is. It doesn't happen to every man. I'm exaggerating, but you understand the point that if the marriage is based on that she's so beautiful and she's so sweet, and when she smiles, my heart just melts. Wow, we can write a song now. Get out your guitar. Let's write a song, Antonio. The way she walks. There's already a song. There's already probably like 1 million songs like that. The way she walks, the way she talks. There's a song like that. I can't remember exactly. Who knows that song? Yeah, right. The way she moves. I mean, this is what causes. You know, look at how she walks. Oh my God, I'm going crazy. This is just reality, right? And the way she smells and that voice. Oh my God, and how she, you know, and look at how she chants. She chants japa so nicely. Look at how she sits and the sweet voice. Oh my God, I just can't take it anymore. Look at how she sits in Bhagavatam class. She is so attentive. And did you hear that question she asked? In yesterday's class, my God, she's so smart. Oh, I'm going crazy. I have to marry that woman. I'm going nuts. This is like truth from the annals of ISKCON history, you know. You want to hear something sad and depressing and amazing, and it'll make you laugh and cry. Many husband and wife teams, or now team, I mean, they weren't married. I like the way she walks. I like the way she talks. Yeah, maybe you others are too young for that song. Who sang that song, Marina? We're supposed to say that about Krishna. I like the way he talks, Bhagavad Gita. I like the way he walks. It's described, Krishna's gait, the way he walks is described in Nectar of Devotion, I think. Anyway, it's just, it does happen. That's all I want to say. It does happen. And then, you know, a man gets like mesmerized by some woman because she chants such nice. I would love to chant japa with her. It would be so nice to sit down and read Srimad Bhagavatam together. That'd be so sweet. I'm telling you, that's how they think. Sad, depressing, but amazing. Oh yeah. A lot of husbands and wives became attached to one another because they were dressing deities and they were on the altar every day or many days together, and they started, you know, talking to one another. And Shruti Sagar has personal experience that this is still going on. So, yeah, all these things. So they'd be on the altar together, and, you know, pretty soon they're like, want to get married. They fell in love on the altar. Now, if it was a good marriage, it was like, okay, well, he's a good devotee, she's a good devotee. You know, we should have been smart enough to not put them alone on the altar every day, because, you know, if you're alone every day with a woman, and and you want to get married, she wants to get married, and you're the same age, there's a good chance that something's going to happen. Yes, Shruti Sagara has personal experience. We have to change the song, Marina. I like the way she chants. I like the way she jumps in kirtan. Oh my God, look at how she dances in kirtan. I'm losing my mind. I can't take it anymore. I have to run to the temple president. Please, please, let me marry that girl. And then the temple president says, but that might be a good match. He asks her, and she says, yes, I've been dreaming about him. I want to marry him. And they're both ecstatic. Like in bhava, ecstatic? No, not in bhava, just like madly lost their minds ecstatic. Not like in Krishna conscious ecstatic. More like insanely ecstatic. And they think, this is Krishna's mercy, you know? Men will never change. Hopefully we're trying to change them to some degree, but these things happen, right? And then they get married and they're like, my God, I got the best brahmacharini in the whole temple. And the woman's thinking, you're not supposed to have these thoughts on the altar, but you're supposed to be a pure devotee also, and sometimes these thoughts enter the altar. God forbid they would, but they do. And so the girl's thinking, I got the best brahmachari. The guys think, I got the best brahmacharini, and they're happy for a while. Till they realize, 10 years later, this best brahmachari is a bum. Kick this guy out of the house. He doesn't even want to work. He's so nasty, and he's like all over these, he's got his eyes on these other brahmacharinis. That's the problem. You know, men, if you're like completely enamored by Miss Hollywood, it's likely after you get married you're going to be enamored by another Miss Hollywood when your wife's 45 and a new Miss Hollywood comes in at 25 and you're like, oh my God, she's so beautiful. Maybe I should marry her instead. My wife's got wrinkles now and she's a little overweight and she's not always nice to me and etc., etc. Right? Now Marina's going, oh my God, do men, Hare Krishna men actually think that way? Some do. I said, how can they think that way? Don't they read Bhagavad Gita? Yeah, they do. But when Miss Hollywood comes, they forget all the shlokas they memorized as brahmacharis. The shlokas just like get covered by those beautiful blue eyes. You think I'm being funny? It's true. It's right there in the Bhagavad Gita. Knowledge becomes covered by lust. Every shloka, that brahmachari knew 4,336 shlokas, and when he looks in her eyes, he forgets every one of them. That could be another song. I knew 4,632 shlokas, but when I looked in her eyes, I forgot every one. Oh Maya, leave me alone. Marina's so happy. Everything I say, Marina's going, oh, I'm so happy. I don't have to go through this. What a relief. I can't believe it. I didn't know this happens to the Hare Krishna movement. So Shruti Shraga has a question. I'm curious as to what should be the real criteria we should have to choose a spouse. Find a woman you're completely unattracted to and you know she's the one. You'll never be an illusion that you were in love with her. No, not exactly. Shruti Shraga, you go to the Grihastha Vision Team website and you Google premarital. It has all kinds of questions that a man should ask a woman and a woman should ask a man to see if they're on the same page. So you should find a woman who's on the same page with you. You know, similar interests, similar nature. And in other words, I mean, it's like one guru once said, Mary Son's more patient than yeah. You could write a play about it. Yeah, maybe we should do it someday. We'll do a play. When I go to Mexico, we'll do a play. You know, call it the Grihastha, the happy brahmachari. It'll be a tragedy, right? And Antonio can play the brahmachari. You know, at the end of it, he's crying. Oh my God, what did I do? Oh my God, I should have stayed brahmachari. That was the biggest mistake I ever made. No, the point is, these classes are turning into comedy routines. Maybe I'm in the wrong profession. Maybe I shouldn't be a guru. Maybe I should just be a comedian. These poor men. So, the point, Shruti Sagara, the point is that you get married to advance in spiritual life. You don't get married to enjoy sense gratification. So that's the big mistake. You know, the man sees this beautiful woman, he thinks, well, I could really be happy with her. And of course that never happens, right? So then that's why he gets frustrated, because no woman can satisfy you like Krishna, you might be happy with her, but usually men have much higher expectations for the happiness they're going to get from this woman. So, that's his frustration. And that woman may have a different temperament, different nature, different interests. What's your interest in life? You're interested, you have a degree, your interest is, getting a good job, settling down, raising a family, and she's thinking, I just want to live in India, just live in a hut, don't work like this. And you're like, no, I spent, like 8 years in college to get this degree, and I've got all these offers for this good job, and I could be making 6 figures, and but I don't want that stuff. I just want to live, in India. So maybe that's not going to work, or vice versa. You want to live in India, and she doesn't. Or you're like a total Brahmin, like 3 a.m, your alarm's going off, and she's like, why are you getting up at 3? Let me sleep, and it's 6 o'clock, you're trying to wake her up. It's 6 o'clock, when did you get up? I'm tired, leave me alone. Chant, but I want to chant with you. I don't want to chant, just leave me alone. Now, if you want to sleep to 6, and she wants to sleep till 6 or 7, then you make a good couple. But if you want to get up at 3 and she wants to get up at 7, you might get frustrated. So I thought, you realize that, she's not really a sadhaka. She doesn't like doing sadhana. There were so many, this is just one example, so many examples. We talked about it in previous classes. You can go to my YouTube channel. Why don't, Gurunishna, you can put the link for the YouTube channel, and then you just have to find the lectures on Grihastha life. I think there's folders or something. So we talk about that. So, okay, obviously I'm exaggerating, but in some cases that happened, and the man was just extremely bewildered by a woman. And the point that any mature man or woman would tell that young, innocent man is to say, you don't know her. And so what you're seeing that's attracting you to her has nothing really to do with what married life is about, because you don't know what she's like. And so you have to know what the woman is like, and then Shruti Shagar, you have to know what you're like. You have to know your nature. You have to know what your expectations are. You have to think like what I tell devotees. Now, all this sounds weird and almost materialistic, but it actually is helpful. If wives could be created, if wives could be programmed, or husband could be programmed, and you could hire a programmer and say, could you program a wife to have this personality, to have these characteristics, to have these qualities, etc., etc., and that's the wife, that's the kind of wife I would like to marry. And you don't Antonio's going, yeah, blue hair, blonde hair, blue eyes, fair skin, 5'6". No, not like that, Antonio. That's what I'm not talking about. We're really getting Antonio's case today, but he can deal with it because he knows I read his mind all the time. No, not like that, but the qualities, the nature. I like a woman who likes to teach, who's Brahminical, because I teach and we make a good team. A woman who's patient, because I have so many bad qualities. If she's not patient, she'll throw pots at me. And marriage would be dangerous. I'll have to take out health insurance before I get married, just to, so I'll be in the hospital a lot, like that, So you kind of understand yourself, and then you understand from what your nature is, the kind of woman. If you could program her, this is how I would program her. And so knowing that, if you're clear about that, then when Miss Hollywood comes up and blinks her eyes at you and smiles, then that sweet voice says, Haribo Prabhu, all glories to Srila Prabhupada, and you're ready to faint, you're sober enough to realize, she's not for me. I mean, I like looking at her, but aside from that, if I was married to Miss Hollywood, it would be horrible, because you understand she has a different nature. Antonio, if you're going to marry Miss Hollywood, you're going to need to work 2 jobs, because to afford her, she's going to want a lot of nice stuff. So a man may think, I have a job, it's simple, I don't make that much money. I want to marry a woman who's satisfied, who can live on that standard. Otherwise I'm going to be working 2 jobs, or I'll have to be working and going back to school, and I'll never be able to make enough money, because she came from this super wealthy family and she's going to want all these things, which is fine if you have a good job you have a good education, you have a good job, then you have no problem. She's saying, well, I want to live in a 3-story house and I want this and that. And he's like, fine, I'll give that to you. I want to live that way also. And he has the job to do it, then it's not a problem. Then he can marry. He can marry Miss Hollywood. But anyway, the conclusion of this particular discussion is that I have personally seen that if there is a brahmacharini, you actually pronounce it brahmacharini, who's very attractive physically, she attracts the attention of brahmacharis or men who are thinking about getting married. She tends to attract more attention than a woman who's not as attractive. Now, sometimes what you also find, which is interesting, is that some women who join ISKCON are very attractive, but they don't make themselves attractive, and the men don't realize it. Some women are very attractive, and they make themselves very attractive, and the men realize it, and they're probably making themselves attractive because they want the men to realize it because they want to get married. So, and then Marina's saying, but they shouldn't do that. They're wearing tons of makeup and all these beautiful silk saris, and they're kind of, happen to be walking through where the men are standing, full of perfume, just, send out a message. And you're like, do they actually do that? Yes. Not as bad as I'm describing it, but yes, they do. Because they're just being women. That's what women do. They like to look good. And so then there's this other woman who's, she's more austere, she's more devoted, she understands, so I'm not going to do that. I don't want to attract a man to me physically. I want to attract a man who actually I'm compatible with. And she may not do that, and then some of the men, they don't really notice how attractive she is, because she doesn't try to make herself attractive. I've seen that also. So this is just truth. There was a show in America called Truth and Consequences. So this is the truth and the consequence of the truth. Now Marina's going, oh my God, I'm joining another movement. This is ridiculous. I can't deal with it. Well, fortunately, Marina, where you are, there are hardly any brahmacharis. So, of course, every temple should have tons of brahmacharis, but there are benefits to not having any brahmacharis, because then you don't have to deal with all these problems. And there are benefits to parents marrying their kids and finding wives for them or finding husbands, because then you don't have to deal with all this. But you just understand the awkward nature of living in a temple, because if you join as a brahmachari, at some point you want to get married, and there are only like 4 women of your age group. It's not like it's either those 4 or what do you do now? And so sometimes that's a huge problem, because none of those 4 are exactly a good match for you, and you've been brahmachari for years, and you've been trying to get married, and you can't wait any longer, and so you want to pick one of those 4, or you've been on some marriage website and nothing's happening, and you're like, what do you do? It's not easy. So that's just a reality that exists in ISKCON, and because there's not a lot of choices, it's like you go to a snack bar and there's only 4 things to eat, and you don't really like any of them, but as you become more hungry, you just buy them because they start looking good because you're so hungry. So sometimes it happens like that. Well, now Marina says she's done. She didn't know this was going on. Now I think she's doubly done, triply done. I've double done you up. Marina just had a triple bypass of Grihastha life. She has already had a single bypass. Now she has a triple bypass. I'm done. Never again. I didn't know it was this bad. All right. Well, it's not this bad always. Sometimes it's the other way. A good man marries a good wife, and they have a good marriage. And but you have to understand the other side of the story, that it does exist. And this discussion. See, Marina knows. I know exactly how she thinks. So this was this discussion was brought up by Timothy's talking about, well, did Ramchandra love Sita? Does a man love his wife? And then I was saying some men really don't know how to love, or the love that they had was not really what we would call love. So then Prabhupada's, when he talks about the duty, this chapter is described as the duty. The last chapter was described as the duty of women. This is the duty of men. The bar thing is cruel. What's the bar thing? I forgot. I can't think. The bar thing. What bar thing? Did I talk about going to the bar? What? Tell me, remind me. My memory only lasts like 4 seconds. It's early in the morning here. The bar thing. Maybe Krishna's channeling through me and I'm speaking and I don't remember what I'm saying. But, this concept of duty, that's what you ultimately get from this, is like, okay, four bars to eat. There's only 4 things to eat, yeah. No, but it's true, yeah. It's kind of cruel. It is. It's just a reality of a man joining ISKCON, or even a woman, you're limited. Well, it's either this guy, or that guy, and the woman's looking at him going, God, if it's only these 4 guys, maybe suicide's a better solution. Or, she marries him, and 10 years later, when she realizes, this was not the guy I should have married, and we say, why'd you marry him? He said, well, there was only 4 things to eat, and he was one of them, so I had no choice. No, suicide's also an option. No, it's not an option, but we're joking here. It's better, but Alejandro's thinking, oh my God, better I don't marry than marry one of these guys, right, Alejandro? I know you're thinking like that. If all 4 of them are bad, then I'd rather fast. Yeah. Because Alejandra's smart and she's detached. And because she's detached, she can be objective and she won't be bamboozled. Just because there's only 4 bars. She's going, no, I'm fasting today. I'll wait. Maybe tomorrow it will be better. Okay, so if we go back and we review what's in these purports here, then one theme that's coming up is that I think in answer to your question, Timothy, I think what we can see that Prabhupada's saying is that love and affection may waver in the material world, and it's like if you look at the situation of Lord Ram and we apply it to ourselves, we can say, your wife's going through all this difficulty and now it's putting all this pressure on you, and you're actually going to have to risk your life to save her, and you have to, hire this army and so forth. And you might think in your mind, I don't know if I love her that much that I'm going to do this. I mean, she's nice and everything. I mean, I like her and all that. I mean, I know I'm married to her, but I don't know if I love her that much that I'm like ready to sacrifice myself. There's a joke amongst this is a householder joke. I may have told you this joke. The man says, honey, I love you so much, I would die for you. She says, oh, you always say that, but you never do. Okay, you can laugh, that was a joke. You get it? Did you get it? So, of course, you don't hear me till about 20 seconds after I say it, so it takes 20 seconds for the ha-has. Come on, Timothy, die for Carolina. She wants to see you prove your love. Only until you die for her will she be satisfied. But take out life insurance before you do it, and she'll be doubly satisfied. Yes, that was a good one. So what Prabhupada is, so the husband's thinking, yeah, I love my wife and everything, but I'm not like dying for her. That wasn't really on my to-do list today. So Prabhupada's saying there's a higher principle, because this love and affection, you just don't know how it's going to work out in the future. I mean, you love her and everything, but maybe after being married for 15 years, it's like the love and affection, it's, I just don't feel it like I did when I was 22 and the hormones were firing, All 8 cylinders were firing. Now there's about 2 cylinders, after 30 years of marriage, there's about 2 cylinders left, so it's like, honey, can you do this? Do it yourself. Don't bother me. So, sannyasa is a form of death. So, this is just true, that you may feel that way. You may not feel you may not feel like giving your life to your wife. You may, so what Prabhupada's saying here is no, but once you get married, it's not how you feel. This is your duty. So your duty is to give protection. So your affection manifests more, it manifests steadily through duty. It may or may not manifest if it's just based on how beautiful she is, how much happiness she gives you, and how much you like her, and how much fun you have together. But now she's sick, and so it's tough, and there's no fun, and you're having trouble with the kids, and this, that, and the kid just got divorced. Now your daughter is there with the kid alone, and you have to you're ready to take sannyas, and now you have to become a grandparent, and you can't do it, and oh my God, on and on and on. Duty, duty, duty. So you show your affection manifests through the medium of duty, where if duty's not there, then you're totally relying on how much affection you have or don't have. And what we're saying is the unfortunate reality is when things become difficult, somehow men can just abandon or lose or bury or evaporate their affection. And all of a sudden they're saying, I want to leave this situation. So how could you leave a situation if you love this woman? They probably never really loved her. They loved her blue eyes, but the point is also, some people are not really capable of loving that much. It's just they're self-centered. They can't make sacrifice. So some people, and maybe they never had a lot of affection in their life, and they don't know how to give it. They don't know how to serve. It's more for men. Women are just by nature more affectionate in general. But some men may not know how to be affectionate, and so for those men especially, duty is most important for them. It's all about duty, because that's what will keep them. Because they're dutiful, they'll show affection. They'll know, it's my duty to be affectionate, because my wife wants affection. All women want affection. Women thrive on affection. And so all men have to give their wives affection. That's what they want. Even if the man is not so affectionate, he still has to show affection. That's his duty. So Prabhupada says part of protection is showing affection. So he, we had discussed this, we had talked about this, and we were saying, well, someone might say that seems artificial, but it's actually how it's supposed to be, because the reality is affection goes up and down. How do we know it's a reality? Look at the divorce rate. How are these people who are so affectionate getting divorced? That means what happened? What happened to that spark? It went out when the hormone dried up, and now, I'm not attracted to those blue eyes anymore, and the way you chant japa, and you don't even want to read Bhagavatam anymore, and it's just an unfortunate reality. It's an unfortunate reality, but it is the way it is. So a woman, when she marries a man, she has to think, is this man dutiful? Well, 20 years from now, when I weigh 10 or 20 more pounds than I do now, ha ha ha, which is also a reality. He may weigh 30 more pounds than he weighs now, so you have the same problem, ladies. If you notice men, over 45, 50, they tend to be 40 pounds heavier than they were when they were 20, in many cases. So, there's that song by Paul McCartney, Will You Still Love Me When I'm 64? Oh, Harish Prabhu from Bahrain. Hari Bol. So, Harish Prabhu from Bahrain, you joined us at the end of class. You missed it. It was so funny. But it was recorded. So, Paul McCartney sang that song. I forget how it goes. Marina probably remembers. Will you need me? Will you feed me? Or something when I'm 64. So it's kind of like, we love one another now, but when we're 64, we're not going to look the same. Are we still going to be together? Are you still going to love me? Or are you going to, 64-year-old men, they tend to marry, they tend to look for younger women to marry on their second marriage. So this is just Kali Yuga. So these things are going on. So a woman, when she's looking for a man to marry, then she has to look at, is this guy going to be dutiful? Is he just whimsical? And is he let's look at his life. Is he steady at anything? Does he tolerate difficulties? Is he responsible? Because that's what married life means. At a certain point, after the honeymoon's over and all that, at a certain point, the heaviness and responsibility of household life, it weighs on a person. It goes, oh, this is what it is. It's about responsibility. It's about duty. It's about doing a lot of things that I didn't have to do as a brahmachari. And so a good man, when he's burdened by these responsibilities, he accepts them as his duty. So this is what household life is. But if a man is irresponsible, then he falls under the pressure, the burden of that responsibility. And he may say, let me out of here. I don't like this. I'm not happy doing this. So ladies, you don't want to marry a man who has no spine, as we say in America. Spineless. This guy is spineless. He can't tolerate any difficulty. As soon as things become difficult, he just starts crying and complaining and he runs away. There are men like that. And as Kali Yuga progresses, there'll be more men like that. And all you men out there, you shouldn't be like that. Either as disciples or as husbands. So this is just the reality. It's like there's affection and attraction in marriage, but it's much more subdued as the marriage goes on, and it's really overtaken by the day-to-day duties of the ashram, and that becomes more prominent. It's like when a couple's new, they're always with one another and they're always exchanging. But when you're married, you're busy, you're working, taking care of the kids, and then so there's a shift, and so there's not always this. It's never the same as it was before marriage or before you had kids. So then it becomes, the duty aspect is very prominent. And so that's why Prabhupada's stressing this duty, duty, duty. I didn't mention in Bahrain, Harish, that we have this class. Of course, it's a bit early for you guys. It's 4 a.m. for you. But you can tell the other devotees, if they want to get up at 4, they can hear class. But they should be chanting japa at 4 in the morning, right? Shouldn't they? Of course, now for you it's later. It's 5:30. Yeah. So we've gone a little over an hour. So any other questions or comments? Or you want more jokes, right? Do you guys just laugh during my class and not realize what I'm saying? This is so funny, Of course, after you get married and you 10 years from now you can listen to this class again and say, I thought Mahatma was just joking, but actually he was totally serious. Everything he said was absolutely 100% accurate. I didn't believe it, but now I know. Yeah, I think you got the message. It's all about duty, because duty is what keeps you going. Ha ha. Timmy and Caro, yes. A match made in heaven. Some matches are made in heaven and some matches are made in hell. So we bless you all that you'll have matches made in heaven. Or we bless you if your match was made in hell, you'll end up like Marina, completely detached. Which is the ultimate goal anyway, is to be detached. So sometimes you have to go through hell to be detached. Sometimes you can have a wonderful marriage, and that will also detach you, because it's like, okay, there were only 4 bars to eat, and I ate one of these bars, and I don't like the way it tastes. So I'm just disgusted with bars. I'm never going to eat a bar again. Or the bar was delicious, and you just ate a lot of bars, and after a while, you don't want to eat bars anymore. You're satisfied. So it works both ways. Okay, so that's good. Good to be friends with the person you used to live with and had kids with and everything. Okay, so we'll see you all. Have a very Krishna conscious evening. May you dream about Krishna consciousness. Good night to all of you. And Hare Krishna, and be good. Don't get into trouble until the next class. We keep you out of trouble with every class.